Hello everyone, my name is Olivia Wolf and I'm the Program Director at the Findlay YMCA. Today what we will be doing is we are going to be reading the book Pete the Cat and His 4 Groovy Buttons, and then we will also be making a Pete the Cat craft after we are finished reading our book. But first we are going to read the book. So again, it is Pete the Cat and His 4 Groovy Buttons. Pete the Cat put on his favorite shirt with 4 big, colorful, round, groovy buttons. He loved his buttons so much he sang this song. My 4 groovy buttons. My 4 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! One of the buttons popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 3. 4 minus 1 equals 3. There are 3 buttons left. 3, thought Pete. Groovy. But did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My 3 groovy buttons. My 3 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 2 buttons. 3 minus 1 equals 2. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My 2 groovy buttons. My 2 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many are left? 1 button. 2 minus 1 equals 1. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My 1 groovy button. My 1 groovy button. Pop! Oh no! The last button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 0. 1 minus 1 equals 0. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He looked down at his buttonless shirts, and what do you think he saw? His belly button. And he kept on singing his song. My button, I still have my belly button. My button, I still have my belly button. I guess it simply goes to show that stuff will come and stuff will go. But do we cry? Goodness, no. We keep on singing. Buttons come and buttons go. And that is the end of our book. Now, in that book, Pete talked about having his 4 groovy buttons. So for our craft, we are going to make Pete the Cat, but we're going to make him into a bookmark that we can use in our house. And we are going to give him 4 groovy buttons to wear. So for our bookmark craft, you will need a popsicle stick, a few different color markers. I used blue, yellow, and black to make his face for with the markers. I have a pair of scissors. I have a paper plate. And I have 4 buttons. And then I will also be using a glue gun, so I have my glue stick here to use. So the first thing we are going to do is we need to draw Pete's head onto our paper plate. If you don't have a paper plate at home, you can also use a piece of cardstock if you have cardstock, or construction paper. Either of those will work just as well, but if you have a paper plate, I suggest using that as it's a little bit sturdier and will probably hold up better with your bookmark. So to draw his head onto the paper plate, I drew a really large V like this to start. And then from the ends of those, from the end of each side, I draw a line going straight up. And then I draw a line going in on both sides to make his ears. And then I connect those lines like this. And then from here, you can do one or two things. You can cut out the head and then draw on the eyes, or I'm going to actually draw my eyes on first. And then before I cut him out too, I'm actually going to color him in. So I'm using a blue marker for his fur, and then I'll be using a yellow marker for his eyes like it is in the book. And then just another, my black marker again for his pupil, for his eyes. Once you have him all colored in the way you would like him to look, then you can cut out his head. Unless you cut yours out first, then you can color him in and swap the steps around. And this is how he will look after he's all cut out. Now, the next step to getting him to look like this is you want to take your popsicle stick and then you're going to glue your head onto it like so. And I will be using a hot glue gun for that today. If you don't have a hot glue gun at home, you can also just use regular glue, like school glue. You could also use tacky glue or super glue if you have that. Just make sure if you're using super glue to maybe have a parent in the room with you to help you. But if you have a hot glue gun, same thing, make sure you have a parent there to help you with that as well. And what you'll do is you'll just put a little dot of glue on the popsicle stick and then you'll stick his head on. So I'm going to do that now. And then you can let it dry. And if you're using school glue or anything that'll take a little bit longer to dry than hot glue, then you'll probably have to let it sit for a little bit before you move on to the next steps and let it dry. However, if you are not, if you are using a hot glue gun, then you can move on to the next steps, which are going to be gluing on his buttons. So, put them in any order that you would like. You should only need a little dot of glue for the buttons to stick on. And when I'm gluing mine on, I'm not leaving any space between them. I'm having them just kind of touch each other like that, because that's about all the room you'll have on your popsicle stick. Also, if you don't have colorful buttons like this at home, you could also use cardstock to cut out circles and then color in the circles to make buttons. Or if you have, like, let's say, like plain white buttons at home that you found, you can color those before you do this whole craft and then wait for them to dry and glue them on like this as well. Okay, so we have all of his buttons glued on. And now the last step is going to be, we're going to give him his tail. So I happen to have some blue ribbon that I'm going to use for his tail, and I'm going to glue that onto the back of my popsicle stick. If you don't have ribbon though, you could also use a pipe cleaner, or you could use string or some sort of yarn as well, could work really well. Just something that will look like a tail that's hanging down from him. So I'm going to glue that on now. And then now I have 2 Keep the Cat bookmarks. And that is all that I have today for our craft in our book. Thank you so much for watching our videos and stay tuned to our Facebook page for more. Thank you.